Welcome to another edition of Unexplained Cases Live. You've got myself, Rick Garner, your executive producer. We got Darren Dito, anchor and lead reporter, and of course, Miriam the Medium joining us tonight. Though we have two very special guests. We got Mr. Pat, Mr. John. Welcome to the show tonight.
Thank you, Rick.
Appreciate having you both here.
Thank you.
You know, we're going to be talking, in case folks aren't familiar with the names or haven't seen the promotions, we're going to be talking UFOs and alien genre this evening, which is a nice change of pace for us, since we certainly ghosts are our bread and butter, but it's also nice to be able to get into other areas of the unknown. And I'm going to toss it over to Mr. Dito for the interrogation.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. Hey, John, Pat, thank you so much, guys, for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
Sure, Darren. Thank you.
And I know, John, you've answered this question probably 8 million times. I hate to do it again, 8 million and one, but what the heck happened December 26, 1980 in Rendlesham Forest? You and Jim Peniston were going out on some type of a call. You get to the forest, and what do you see?
Well, there was a 3-night event, and I was involved in 2 of the 3 nights. The first night, we saw something strange, or actually the guy was riding, we saw something strange going to the forest. We got permission to go out to check it out, because at first they thought it might have been an aircraft that went down because they had radar contact. At the same time, we saw what we saw. So we got out, we got something, whatever it was. The person that was involved in like the light of energy or something like that. He actually walked up, had a binary download. The third guy, Ed, he saw mostly what I saw, and at the point then, after it went back up in the sky and shot back towards the coast, we pursued it for another hour or so, and we didn't really get close to it again. But that's kind of the first night in a nutshell. The second night, I went out, and there's going to go on. It's actually the third night. Colonel Halt was involved, but towards the end of it, another airman and I got close to it, and he saw me go into it and disappear and come back. So
now, when you say disappear, like abduction or loss of time, or what exactly happened?
Unfortunately, it looks like we just lost him.
Oh no!
Yeah. Just at that second, it sounded like he was having some connection problems. We were only having John on audio, so he was on his phone. So hopefully, I'll get him back in here as soon as he calls back. Okay.
Well, Pat, I can talk to you about that. I mean, how did you guys? There's a lot more to the story, I understand, and John could talk about it, but how did you get involved, a lawyer from Mississippi? How did you get involved in an incident that happened back in 1980 in England?
Are you there?
Yes, sir. I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got cut off. All of a sudden it went dead, and I had to re-log in, so sorry.
No, you left us in the soup, as my grandmother used to say. You said that you had like disappeared. I was wondering, we talking like an abduction, or you just kind of vanished in the forest? What happened?
No, what I mean is that I have no recollection of what happened. The guy that was with me got knocked onto the ground as we got close to this, and he said it came over the top of me, and I disappeared inside of whatever it was. Like I phased out, and then I reappeared afterwards. So no, it's not being called an abduction. It's just what he saw happen. I went into this milky type, whatever it was, and he saw me like phase out. The best way he described it was like Star Trek, where they beam in and out.
Yeah,
and then I reappeared. So no, it's never been labeled. Well, some people tried to say it was an abduction, but he just simply saw me go in, disappear, and come back. So.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I was just asking before you came back, Pat, his relationship with you. Pat, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but how did you come to meet, John, and what's been your role in this, such a famous incident?
I had seen a television show called UFO Hunters
Mm-hmm.
In 2008, they had an episode, I think it was military versus UFOs, and they featured the Rendlesham Forest incident in that episode. And that was my introduction to the event. I'd never heard of it myself before. And I remember thinking that that was a fascinating incident, and it had all the the pieces of just credibility throughout, given who the witnesses were.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of kept that filed away in my mind, and it'd be a couple of years later I would come across a podcast out of it was actually a radio show did at CHE in Westchester, Pennsylvania, Rob Simcox's Paranormal Cafe, and he had John and Jim. He interviewed them in a great radio program that I must have listened to 30 or 40 times. And I decided from that I had to meet these two gentlemen for myself, so that I could see them and listen to their voices without a screen or anything in between us, and make my mind up. So to do that, I put together a UFO conference, Mississippi UFO Conference 2011, which we called From Roswell to Rendlesham, and of course UMC'd in 2011. And so that was how I got to meet the two gentlemen, John and Jim. And it was following that they asked me for my help, excuse me, in helping them acquire their medical records from the Air Force that up to that point they were not able to get the Air Force to give them.
Thank you again. I appreciate that. That was a great time, 9 years ago. John, there were consequences of what happened, talking about your medical records. After the incident, you were exposed to some high levels of radiation that caused some other health issues. Can you explain a little bit about what happened to you and why the military wasn't really helping you to get better?
Well, okay. I'll try to describe it in a nutshell. Basically, what it came down to, and I think Pat was involved in a lot of this, and we still don't understand to this day exactly what they're covering up or why they're doing it. It came down to I got sick after I came back from the 30th anniversary. I visited England, and I got sick. Went into the hospital, had AFib and congestive heart failure. The problem my civilian doctors were having was simply that what I was going through, they couldn't figure out why. They knew I had mitral valve prolapse. I had gotten sick right after the incident. But what it came down to was the doctors wanted to see the initial reports and echo on my initial, after I got sick right after the event. And I had to get first, I got one senator involved, Senator Kyle, and they got stonewalled. And one of the aides was well aware of the government classified program and stuff. And she came back and told me flat out my records were classified. And then at that point, she said, file for disability and we might get access to some of your records. My personnel records were cleaned. In other words, all the stuff involving Bentwaters was gone. Even my DD form 214 was missing. My original one, the one that would have shown my whole service record. So that was gone. And so I went through the VA. They did an initial evaluation. Kyle had retired by then. McCain got involved. And what happened was the doctor that I saw said that, well, I wasn't in the military during the time I was describing I was injured. And I was like, what? Huh. And so she said, I showed her proof I was, and she was kind of shocked. And she says, well, it's by my pay grade. I'll write it up and we'll go from there. Well, about 3 months later, I got a denial letter. And I sent it to Pat. I think that made Pat wonder, and even Senator Kyle's aide, or not Senator McCain's aide was involved, was they flat out said I wasn't in the military, that I was not in during the event, and that my medical records didn't exist, as far as that also. And so that turned into a big fiasco. And to sum it all up, eventually we were able to prove to the Air Force, even though what the aide had trouble with AFRPC that denied I was in, and I got around that by calling retirement because I couldn't have been retired if I didn't have that time frame, and we got around that. We were able to finally prove that I was in, and so that upped the ante for what were they going to do next. Well, then there was supposedly going to be an agreement, and then they reneged on the agreement, and the Justice Department got involved in everything else. But to sum it all up, my DD Form 214 is not my real DD Form 214 even to this day. They just did a piecemeal one. And then the other part is my medical records are still classified. But along the way, when all this was happening, we had the CIA get involved also, and Pat got to work with that guy. So that was it's been a very interesting experience along the lines.
Okay, Pat. So I heard CIA. Of course, everybody hears that. They think conspiracy, some kind of a cover up, UFOs, the whole thing. What was the deal with the CIA? I'm dying to hear.
Well, the CIA involvement began after John and I went to speak at the Citizens Hearing on Disclosure at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. at the end of April, early May of 2013, right, John? And within about a week or so, within about a week or so after I had returned home from Washington from appearing there, we had testified before a mock congressional hearing that was made up of former congresspeople, one senator, I believe, and it was very much the same. I had worked in Washington before for a California representative, a member of Congress, so back in the 80s, and I was familiar with how they did all that sort of thing as a staffer, and it was pretty much identical to the way it's really done. But we gave testimony one day. I think it was about a 4 or 5 day hearing. I flew back home from it. About a week later, I get a phone call on my cell phone from a gentleman named Kit Green, Dr. Kit Green, who said that he had become aware of our testimony through someone who was there, and that he thought he could help John. About 3 days later, Kit Green and I were in a motel room meeting here. It was in Flowood, Mississippi, not far from where I live. And he spent about 6 hours, and he was explaining different clinical or things that had to do with the brain and what happens when you come in contact with certain craft and the electromagnetic fields and so forth. And basically, it was an introductory meeting to meet me, I'm sure to assess me, for him to kind of gain my trust that he wanted to help. And then from there, we would ultimately go on to meet with Jim up outside Chicago and meet with John, who was living in Sedona at the time.
Not to go into too much what he told you, but I remember years ago, we were chatting just about what you think is happening really is happening. Is this the same gentleman that, everything we hear in the news and, just the government is trying to deny it? Or is there...
John will agree with me on this. Kit Green is one of those people that if you say, Kit, is the sun shining? He'll tell you, well, it's partly cloudy, and then he might say later it's partly sunny. He never will really. So
he sounds like a politician.
Yeah.
Well, and let me add something else to this. He came out when he saw me in Sedona, which no one told me at the time, but my health was deteriorating then. He told Pat that I didn't have much longer to live. So they wanted to do a couple other things that were very interesting. They wanted to do a MRI on my brain, and then they also wanted my DNA. And we told him no to both. But when he got back, he then wrote a letter to, it was a doctor, attorney, client, confidential letter that we can't ever release. But in it, he laid out a lot of what was going on. And he told me to hand that over to the VA, and I did, and that changed everything. The next thing you know, the DOD's got doctors down there looking at me. I'm down in Tucson. I end up getting into my surgery. They figure out exactly what's wrong with me based on his letter, and so he played a part in my life, as far as my life being saved, because the doctors didn't know what was going on. And once he gave them the information that he did, they knew exactly what to look for and what to do after that.
Wow. I obviously believe what you're saying. There back then, and maybe even today, some people have tried to debunk it, saying it was a light from I guess there was a lighthouse in the distance. Maybe it was a prank. I mean, what do you say to someone that believes that, John? I mean, you've got a hell of a story. I mean, what happened is real. Do you think it was aliens, a military thing you got, caught in the middle?
We're putting together a book, but I can tell you this much. The funny thing is the lighthouse may have actually played a part in it. And what I can tell you is this. A lot of stuff has been declassified over the years on government projects, what was taking place outside the back gate at RAF Woodbridge. There was a lot of top secret technology being tested and worked on in that area at the time. There were several facilities that most of them are closed now, other than Rendlesham Heath, that were involved. And what most people don't even realize, Rendlesham Heath at that point in time was working on SDI. They were working on all the technology involved in all that. So there was a lot of stuff taking place out there, on top of the fact that Project Condign, and they had somebody else down there investigating. There is a phenomenon in that area, and it all ties into the phenomenon itself, what they were working on, what may have been taking place. And one of the things that's interesting about the lighthouse that we'll reveal in the book is they were using the lighthouse to send out EM frequencies. So
Interesting.
So it's a very complicated case, and the fact that Kit Green knew so much about it, even though he tries to downplay it, like Pat will say it's partly cloudy, but the minute he got that letter to Pat and I got it to the VA, they knew what to look for and they knew what to do. Okay, and so he has a lot better understanding of what took place and what went on in that event, and it's even possible he may have even been involved because he was an analyst that was working with the CIA and Cold War tactics and stuff in that area at the very time of the event.
Certainly seemed to know quite a bit about that and other things. So, Pat, what do you think? Because of what happened with John's case, the government acknowledging something might have happened. Do you think they're starting to come around to be more transparent about UFOs or aliens and things like that? I mean, will we ever get? We're seeing more of these videos released from the military. Are we starting to turn the corner about having disclosure, I guess, from the feds?
I don't.
I know it's a loaded question.
First of all, the people or the folks that are releasing the videos, John and I know, and we've in fact met with them before. And I think they are releasing slowly information that has to do with what the truth is. I was very interested recently in Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who's on one of the Senate committees there that's been briefed on these sightings and so forth. And he made some comment that really resonated with me, which was something to the effect that we don't know if it's a jump in technology that's been made by the Chinese, the Russians, or so forth, or if it's from elsewhere. And he said something along the lines of, I really kind of hope it's from elsewhere. And in other words, there hasn't been a leap in technological capability by someone else on Earth. I thought that was really interesting. And it's kind of the way we see it. I think there is a slow release of information that's leading up to something. And whether it's extraterrestrial or not, I hope it is. But whether it is, I don't know.
Well, the way 2020 is happening, a UFO may land at the White House and the president will come out.
Can I put 2 cents in on that real fast?
Yeah, please go ahead, John.
2 cents in worth in that, okay?
Yeah.
One of the things that happened after I got my settlement, Senator McCain was involved in it, and there was a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes, including the Justice Department. But these people that are involved in these videos being released and everything else went straight to his committee for funding for technology. Okay, they went straight to him, and then that's been all declassified and released. They had a Senate briefing before he died. They released to his committee a ton of DIA work and stuff they were working on, including how put-offs work with interstellar possible travel with warp drive and stuff. So there's another twist to this that involves the fact that these guys have all worked in the government for years. Put-off was involved in Stargate, and that they always are looking to advance this in technology. And the fact of the matter is they want more money to work on their new projects. And so the fact that will this ever really probably come out, I would say no. We've gone through this about once a decade. They go through this build up, go through Blue Book, then the 80s, then the 90s, and it all involves technology. And the big question is I firmly believe this. We may not have an alien craft in the hangar, but we have a terrestrial craft built off of alien technology. That's how I'm going to leave it.
Okay, maybe from Roswell. Okay, well, Rick, this is the time when you get to jump in and we talk about our remote viewing for the evening with Miriam, sir. So I'll turn it over to you real quick.
Oh, yeah. I want to go ahead and get some shout outs. We got, as usual, a bunch of folks in the chat. Michael, Jessica, Vicky, Susanna, Michelle, Tracy, Barbie, Abdul, Mary Christina, Jim, and Stephanie, just to name a few. Hopefully I didn't miss anybody. But thanks for everybody. Feel free to drop in any questions as we get started here. We also have some fantastic drone footage that we have permission to use because, as anyone who's seen the program knows, we like to have some visuals going on just to give you a good sense of where we're at. But I will turn things over to Miriam at this point.
All right. I'm going to get started. I've got
if you need any kind of intro or anything, although they've done a pretty good job. If you want to know any facts, just let me know.
Yeah, thank you. Just keep me on track, and John and Pat interrupt with questions. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little nervous about things that I'm going to say. I'm going to do my best to say what I'm supposed to say, and whatever is supposed to not be said, I will be told or held back by my guides. I've got there's two specific alien families that we are dealing with. One is light, one is incredibly dark. Sorry, 3. And then there's one that is simply curious, if you will. John, the group that you were dealing with is right there in the middle. They're the ones that are curious, not meaning harm. There was a, excuse me, I may get emotional. I'm going to prep you on this. What we have done, what human beings has done to alien life is horrific. What human beings do to human life is horrific. But right now we're just looking at alien specific. And there's been we've done a lot of really awful things to these different families. And so when they come down to understand, to investigate, there's this vulnerability, if you will, this not understanding of why when they come down, harm is inflicted on them. Their intention is not to do harm. John, what happened to you was not from that group. That group was you had the experience you had was 100% with this alien family I'm speaking with now. The physical harm that was done to you was not from them. It was coming from somewhere else. There was multiple things at play. They're telling me that you are actually pretty clear on what was at play and what happened. But this group is telling me that they came down to learn, investigate, understand. It was wrong place at the wrong time, if you will, but yet the right place at the right time. Wrong place at the wrong time for the physical body of yours. Right place at the right time for you to meet this group and bring this to light. They are they want you to know that that was never their intention, was to put you in harm's way. They want you to know that they were there simply to learn, and that they are working with you now as much as they can through whomever they're not giving me specifics, who they can, so that you get the information you need. They played an integral part in your healing because they were concerned. These are compassionate beings that are concerned about other compassionate beings. They wouldn't just leave someone to die, even if that someone wasn't from their own race, even though that's what human beings do. They do not practice what we practice, in the sense that they will always go back for their own and for those that need help. And they said that they returned to support and get you what you needed to heal, because what happened to you didn't come from them. What happened to you came from a source that was created from a human individual, not from an alien group. These human beings that caused this have killed many alien life forms from many different families. They have tortured. They have held captive. They do not ask questions. They simply abduct. We talk about how human beings are abducted. Well, we never talk about the amount of alien life that has been abducted by humans, the amount of alien life that's been lost, that's been tortured. And what you're doing is imperative. These groups deserve freedom. There's this third group. I'm sorry, I'm getting them a little mixed up. I'm talking to multiple people right now. There is a moment that is happening as we speak almost. I've been told about this coming for the past few weeks. There's a group that has come in. If certain information isn't revealed by humans, that information will be revealed through aliens, meaning you will have an actual alien experience and a landing on Earth that will be seen by all. This is why documents are being released. There's been a threat, a war, if you will. If you don't release information, we will do it ourselves in a way that you can't control, that the government can't control. That's why things are being released. That's why information will continue to be released. There is an influx of landings that's actually coming and happening as we speak. They're going to be integrating into human society. Some of these energies are not what you want on Earth, but you won't be able to differentiate. They blend in with the dark side of humans. Those beings that come from the light would not vibrate or allow themselves to vibrate on Earth. Earth's vibration is very low. They don't want to taint their love, their light, their compassion with the human vibration. So we are forced to deal with energies and aliens that vibrate lower, that vibrate darker, because it blends more with Earth and humans can relate and understand. The experience you had, you don't need me to tell you. They're saying you are, I'm saying to you, Miriam saying to you, John, you don't need me. You already have all the information, obviously. But this group is saying through me to you, we're here, we're speaking, and the information you have is correct. The clarity you're getting will continue to evolve, will continue to bring you to more answers, not less. Finish this book, but there's a second one to come. There's going to be more information and more life experience. They're wanting you to understand that they came in to heal you because they felt they want you to hear the apology, that they are so sorry that you were caught up in that. Of course, they weren't the ones that inflicted the physical but they were the ones to come in and heal.
Hey, could I go back real quick, Miriam?
Yep.
Yeah, you had said something about integrating. Is it meaning that the aliens would be they're integrating into our society or procreating
Yes.
or
Yeah.
so they're
integrate
here
into
right now.
Yeah, they work. A lot of these darker energies already work very closely with a lot of politicians. And politicians know it. This secret, if you will, the fact that they have been held to be a secret or to be is it real? Is it not? Is being threatened. Meaning, again, like they said earlier, that if government doesn't start releasing information, they will make sure that everyone knows who they are and that they're here. It's bribery, basically.
Miriam, may I make a comment here?
Yeah.
What you just said, you said it once before just now. You call it threat, conflict, perhaps would be another word. A conflict between us and whoever is something that John. I don't know if you were present for that talk. That one of those gentlemen we mentioned before said essentially the same thing. It's kind of chilling to hear that again.
I think that you two, I'm sorry, I'm not saying I think coming from me, this group is speaking through me. They're saying that you two were chosen leaders and will continue to be leaders in this movement. You will be protected. You will be protected. Do what you need to do, say what you need to say. They will look after you. You're going to have pushback. It's going to get ugly. But they'll look after you. So the night, is there John, I'll ask you. I feel like I want to ask you this before. Is there anything about that evening that you want me to ask? Look.
Well, okay. Let me. Can I get a couple minutes to explain the other possibility that possibly went on? And I say this based off of I went on a very in-depth hypnosis back in '88, and there was the guy that did it was a police officer. He was a retired police officer. He had experience in that working through the police department in California and everything else. But there was it's always been hard. There's a couple clips of it on the internet. My hypnosis, Linda Moulton Howe did a presentation and used a couple clips of it. But the interesting thing about the hypnosis is this guy was basing some of what his experiences with different people that were involved in different encounters, kind of like what you're saying. But in my particular case, it appears that what we were dealing with could have been, as crazy as this will sound, it was what we evolved to in the future, coming back to look at what was taken.
Say it again, John.
We just lost him. I'll get him back in.
I believe he's going to say humans from the future coming back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Is that and that's what when Jim Peniston touched the craft, didn't he get some kind of a message, Pat, telling him they were time travelers?
Something, yes. And I want to. John's back. I'll let him take that. John.
Okay. What I was going to finish saying was in actuality we were dealing it could have been our life forms from the future coming back, because it was a defining moment at the beginning of how we changed our evolution ourselves, and that there's even a possibility that I was dealing at one point with an entity that was myself from the future.
Absolutely.
Now that is all my hypnosis.
Yeah.
But it wasn't alien. It wasn't an alien. It wasn't aliens. It was us. And Peniston had some of the same things in his hypnosis saying they are us. So that there might have been something else there. I'm not saying there was or wasn't, but it's possible. And this has been always hard for me to stomach, was that these, and it's in the clip you'll see on the internet, where the energy, the lights that I saw were the life forms. It wasn't a life form. It was the blue lights were the life forms that we were dealing with. So
yeah, let me explain that. That's 100% correct. So you come from the future. Yes, I come from the future. And the families that we come from are alien, for lack of better words. They're just not human. We're human now, but where we came from was not of human descent. So your experience was absolutely that. But you understand, the family I'm speaking with is the family you come from. Does that make sense?
yeah, because, well, okay. Basically, what I took out of it, and I think you're saying the same thing, and I could be wrong, is that there's an energy that came down, that the container is no other word. Our bodies are containers that occupied our containers, but eventually what we are now in a container will no longer need the container. I don't know how long. I don't have a date. I don't know if it'll be 100 years, 1,000 years, but eventually we will no longer occupy Earth in a physical form like we are now. We'll be energy. It'll be pure energy, and we'll be able to shape and move and bow differently than we do now. We won't need. They won't need a craft to go. And that's the next question is,
Yeah.
which we never had an answer, was how did this get back here? So are they using wormholes and all that other stuff? That's another whole angle that's never was totally explained.
So yes, of course, what you're saying is accurate. I understand it completely. This is the struggle. The struggle is making logic of what you are. I understand what you're expressing because I've experienced it. I understand. Making logic of it so others understand is almost close to impossible, but you've came incredibly close, if not right, as close as you can come to making human logic of it. You're 100% correct. I'm introducing you to the family that you come from the future. What you just described is, as far as not utilizing the human body, absolutely. That's something that you have experienced in the future and you experienced in that moment. The human body is one of the least developed of all species. If you look at if you allow yourself to feel the amount of the different species that encompass the universe, you have to allow yourself to feel it. There's so many you couldn't even begin to make sense of it. But the human body is the least developed. So when you're in this body, trying to make sense of things is challenging, especially making sense of coming from the future. But you've done a great job of it. And that's exactly what it is. What I'm introducing you to is the family that was engaged in that experience with you, and the family that has watched over you since that has happened.
Right. I'm curious, because Pat, you were involved with Greens, what they were asking for and stuff. They're very curious about how these energy forms pick certain bodies, or evolve. What do you know about that? I mean, is there anything there you can answer? Because one of the things they were looking at was the human mind. That was the MRI, and they've done a study, and then they also were doing a DNA study. And
who are these
those
people?
were two. The government. It was the CIA guy and a couple other people involved inside this organization, including one of the top geneticists in the world. He's out of Stanford, and we got to meet him. That's another whole story where they came down to try to get my DNA from me the day after Green left. So there's been a lot of interesting things that have happened, but they're very interested in the mind itself and the DNA of the I call it a container in our body of why certain things happen, whether the interaction that takes place with this phenomena, or whatever you want to call it.
You're saying I just want to make sure I'm following. This doctor from Stanford, these other people are wanting your DNA. They're interested in this phenomenon, and you're asking why they are?
John,
well, yeah. What? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to add, from our understanding, was that when these craft are operating, okay, that they emit a certain radiation in the spectrum, and it affects humans differently. So, and it causes changes that they're interested in finding out, either how to prevent or why these changes occur. My guess is because if you want to create an alien reproduction vehicle like John was referring to earlier, you don't want to kill the human pilot, by operating it. John, what is your take?
Well, they definitely were interested in that, the effects on the body. And remember General Williams, who was my wing commander, came down and was came down even the night before my surgery. But the meeting I had with him was that he told me that he had some of the same issues with his body, and he was really sick when he came that night before my surgery. But it appears that he may have interacted with the technology they've been trying to develop. The big question is exactly what are they using to develop it off of? Now, one of the things that was brought up was Roswell. Well, there is a piece, the Bisma, that was recovered out there is being studied and worked on by the Army right now. So there's a lot of open questions in all this. And when I made the statement about we have a terrestrial craft that's developed off alien technology, what I should have said was the word UAP technology. Exactly what is a UAP, which they've changed it from alien, and exactly how and what are they using this to develop the weapons and everything else, the advancements we have. And is it also possible that how we do evolve, they may be trying to figure that out? I mean, would it be the body itself you can actually separate? Because one of the things they're trying to work on, DARPA, is to take the mind, which is the consciousness, and put it in a computer and have the computer, the body, you don't need the body, the computer's the body, the mind, it controls the computer. So there's so many different things they're working on right now that open up a lot of questions.
So it depends on the alien group that you vibrate with. Okay, so what's happened is you've got multiple groups. There's not just the three, there's multiple alien families that exist. Just like here on Earth, there's groups of people that you would never associate yourself with. There's aliens that would never associate with you or would associate with others. So what I'm trying to say is that there's hold on. There's the family that you come from, and then there's these other groups that deal with the government. The groups that deal with the government deal on the same vibration as the government. Families that you come from, that I come from, that Pat deals with, that Pat may even come from, I haven't gone there yet for Pat, is compassionate beings that are not going to be involved in how to manipulate, how to create, how to destroy, build. That's not what they're here to teach. These groups that work to manipulate, to dissect, to destroy, to build, those are groups that you don't want to be a part of, but they're intensely a part of the government. You got to understand the groups that you are dealing with. This is like going to Compton, into the bowels of where the gangs live, or going to where Buddha lives. Okay? Which would you rather deal, or who do you resonate more with? But because we have that, that's what's happening right now. So your story, if you're not clear, John, all these other things that you mention and talk about and that are happening, all these things that are going on don't necessarily have anything to do with your family that you come from, the future that you come from. These are different beings that are allowing themselves to engage in these other experiments, if you will. So there's this crossover that's happening. They're not saying don't be involved. They're not saying don't do it, but understand that who you are and where you come from and what you're about is not the same as these other scientists and government run experiments. It has nothing to do with you. It's like taking a dog and trying to, well, humans do this. This is a perfect example. Taking an animal and trying to figure out how to cure a human diabetes in an animal. Like it's totally different. And so you have to understand that there's things that are all these things that are coming in and getting mixed up. It doesn't have any relevance to your experience. The beings that work with these other people are completely different beings that are a family that you are not associated with. And they are lumping in experience. So they're taking, like, let's say you have a group of 50 people that have had alien experiences. Every single experience will depend on which family they came from or which family took them and managed them. And families like where you come from or I come from don't abduct human beings, don't do experiments on human beings, don't engage with the government to do those things, don't need to dissect and look at. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm saying that understand there's so many different families that these beings come from, and they're trying to lump it all into one. Oh, it's an alien. That's one thing. No, there's millions of families within. It's like someone saying, "Oh, you're human. You guys are human. You're the same." No, my history where I come from is nothing like John's. Like we're not the same, other than we have the same human, like you said, casing. But other than that, there's nothing the same. And they're doing that with aliens, and then they're taking people who have had these alien experiences and saying, "Oh, well, you should match up with this, or we want to see what your DNA is, and we want to see what this is." And you can't do that. You have to understand who you're working with, and they don't understand how to do that. They don't understand the family you come from is different from the family I come from. And so things will look different, feel different, behave different. That's what they're missing.
Hey, Miriam, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
And I hate to go backwards, but there was a couple of things I wrote down, and I know, Pat, you kind of chimed in. I wrote down conflict threat between us. What exactly, maybe Pat, what's going on? Is there something that's coming, or?
So there's, I'm going to say this in really kind of simple, it's going to sound silly terms. There's a group, an alien group, that is threatening human existence, meaning not threatening, saying we're going to come, kill everybody, but they're talking with those in the government and saying, if you don't start showing who we are, we're going to come down and show it where you don't have any control over now. You can either release information on your terms the way you want so people see, or we're going to come down and do it our way. I know that for some people that sounds like a stretch, but it is not. It is not.
No, it's not. And let me say this, Miriam is right again. The conflict extends to within our own government, insofar as there are some who do want to release and some who don't. So the conflict is just like she's intimating there. It's beyond just, a simple matter.
So is the reason because they don't want folks to say, "Oh, we don't control the skies, there'll be mass chaos and things like that," or is there another motive that maybe I don't see it?
The way I was explained it was more along religious faith grounds. There's just no room for that.
that would blow everything up. I mean, Miriam, what do we know where the aliens are from? I mean, I have no idea. I'm sure it's from a place far away, but is there like, do they give you any kind of a hint about planets or galaxies or anything like that?
No, I've got communicating with aliens is very different than communicating with spirits. So I've got my family that's here protecting, if you will, just helping manage what I'm saying. And then I've got John's family, and then I've got this other group that's works with the government and expressing to me the threats. And so no, we're not going. I don't have that information. For some reason, I'm being told not to ask and not to go there. The reason why that this other group wants that the government to release information is there's an agreement that they have made with them, and our government didn't uphold our end of the agreement. And so now there's this threat, this you didn't uphold your end, so we're gonna make sure that you do what you said you were gonna do. This is not something that you mess with. This is not something that I even, like, my insides are vibrating as I'm dealing with them. These are not people that I want to deal with. The only reason why I'm engaging at all is because I'm connected with my family, and there's this understanding to leave each other alone. They also have an agenda. They want me to spill the beans. They want me to speak on behalf of them. They want me to threaten, but that's going to put me in jeopardy. That's why I'm being held back from too much communication with this group, because they're using me to get their information out. And that's not what I'm here for. And that's between the government and them. But the point for you, John, is that your family is saying they don't want you to be, like I stated earlier, there's so many, attributes that they're just defining everybody as one thing. And your experience was many things. Your experience was different from so many other experiences. You weren't abducted. You're right. Like you know what happened and where you come from. You don't need us to reiterate that. But what they do want you to understand is to not be lumped in and treated as if, oh, he had some random experience and so did this guy, you must be the same. No. The family that you come from is unique and doesn't abduct. Okay, so people that come from the same family that you come from will have experiences similar to yours. It's not an abduction experience, if that makes sense. All right, questions? Anything else you want me to look at?
Well, I don't know if you can answer my question.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead, John, please.
I was just going to say something that I've been curious about, because whatever it is, and you hinted that, you're being told that they're coming here. Well, is it the fact that they can't survive here very long unless they're in the human container? And at this state and time, they have to develop, like we are trying to develop a spacecraft to go out into space. They use the human container to exist here because it can't exist here very long for whatever reason. Is that possible? I'm just curious. Something I always
walk-ins. Yeah, walk-ins. But we're talking about this lower vibration group that deals with the government, and they do walk-ins. They will actually, they step in and take over the body. It's not like something you see in a movie. This is very subtle. So there's both existing within the body. There's one government official, they're saying, I'm not saying the name, that is a walk-in. But he's existing. He's fully there, but this walk-in is there also. Walk-in, and they're working together. I don't know that this person knows this is what's happened, but that is what's going on. So they have figured out how to exist on Earth.
Hey, John, let me ask you a question real quick. 1980, the height of the Cold War, NATO, certain things probably were stored there at Bentwaters that you can't tell us about. Do you think that had anything to do with the visitation at that time? What was going on in the world and what was at the bases there?
No, it had to do with what they were working on technology-wise at Bowsey, Martlesham Heath, Wooten, and a couple other facilities that will never be named, that they were working on all this stuff there and had nothing to do with the resources we had on base. And the phenomenon that's still there today, that whatever they were doing to that phenomenon, they were actually doing research and working on the phenomenon itself. So it had nothing to do with the resources that we had at the bases, or base, actually, the one base.
Gotcha. All right. Always wanted to know that. Thank you.
That's my opinion. Okay. I'm just telling you that's on all the stuff that I've looked at and worked on. I don't think it had anything to do with what was at Bentwaters. No.
I wish I would have looked where I saw the article today. Something about somebody was digging up there and they found some cable or fiber optics or something that was like way from the future for the internet. I guess way, I don't know what that. I wish I would have pulled that article, but it sounded like one of those things like, I wonder where that came from.
There's all kinds of stuff out there that they were working on, and the interesting thing was, it's possible that that's a defining moment. That the technology that they're working on has evolved today, but that is actually what they've discovered and what they worked on is affected the only other thing you can call is a timeline, that it may have altered or affected our timeline and where we should be, where we were then and where we should be today. That is something that's come up that's interesting.
Wow.
Well,
Humans have created more destruction. They are farther away than they think. They think they are closer to matching up with alien life form spaceships and such. They're not. They're not even close. Just a side note. That's what I was told to tell you guys. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. We are down to the final few minutes. So, my goodness, this has been jam-packed with all sorts of information. I guess, John, Pat, any comments, any thoughts, final parting words about tonight's experience?
John?
All I can say is there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. That I don't believe, and if I disappoint your listeners, I don't believe we're ever going to get the straight answers. And what I mean, the general public's not going to get it for the simple reason that they've kept this technology secret from the beginning to today. So the technology involved is why it's going to remain, it's going to remain secret. Now, as far as what's going to happen in the next few months, who knows? Because I honestly cannot believe where 2020 has been and where it could go between now and the end of the year. To include now, there's an article out that there's an asteroid that hit us the day before the election. So, and that's a mainstream article, so that's not conspiracy people. So who knows what's going to happen next?
Great, of course.
Yep.
Pat, you want to say something real quick?
Only thing I would add is that where we are today, insofar as it being this whole topic being talked about the way it is so different from the way it was just 25 years ago. For a U.S. senator, like I mentioned earlier, to be saying what he did never would have been said 25 years ago. So there's already been a shift, a change towards something. So. And maybe this is the year something will happen. We'll see.
Right. Well, we are out of time, but John and Pat, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks, everybody.
No problem.